Welcome to the Father's Rights Playbook, a podcast designed to help men and fathers successfully navigate the family court system. I'm your host, Mark Reel Jr., and on today's podcast, we have Missouri attorney Jeff Millar. What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Father's Rights Playbook. Today we have Missouri attorney Jeff Millar. Hey, Jeff, how we doing today?
Hey, great, Mark. How you doing? Good to see you.
Fantastic. The last time we did this, we actually got to do it in person.
Yeah,
And
we sure did.
unfortunately, not this time. I am going to be headed out your way, though. I think the October event, I might be making some time to get out to Missouri.
Oh, very good. October
To
1st, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, October 1st. So I actually this morning talked to Mark Ludwig a little bit. So
Oh,
hopefully
very
I'll be
good.
able to
Very
make it
good.
out there. It seems like that's going to be a nice gathering of really. I told Mark all of our internet friends that we talk
Yeah.
with so much
And it's a
to
great
see
opportunity
everyone
to
in person.
exactly see everyone in
So
person. And
yeah. So I think the thing that's on most people's minds, and we'll get to that kind of second, is first off, congratulations on Missouri becoming. I think technically you were the fifth. I think Florida beat you
I
by
think
a
that may
few
be right.
days.
Yeah, yeah, I think that may be
So the
right.
fifth state in the United States to have a presumption of equal and shared parenting. So that's a big win for really everyone in the state of Missouri. So uh,
Absolutely. It took us nearly a decade, 9 years. I was involved for
mhm.
6. So while we were fifth, it's been great being a part of it myself the last 6 years, our group the last 10. We've really just been at the forefront of trying to, establish this as sort of the national model, uh, the base language that can be used in other states. So very, very exciting.
Yeah, and I'll say this for anyone that doesn't know, I mean, the Missouri crew might be the strongest crew on the national scene, and you guys have played a part in Kentucky and West Virginia, in Florida, everywhere else that has Arkansas that has pushed this through.
We really
So
do. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
We've worked with all kinds of different groups and the folks down in Arkansas and other places as well, New York, Ohio. We've worked with a ton. Definitely have your group reach out to us and we'll see if we can help someone become the sixth state, right?
yeah.
All the way up to everyone.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So we'll pivot here. We'll come back because I want to spend some time on legislation. But
Yeah.
I want to start. I mean, we'll call it our day jobs. That we spend our time in family court, and everybody sees the 5050guy.com.
Right.
So you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and how you got into family law?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, gosh, I got into it like a lot of other folks by going through it. And now it was quite some time ago. My son is since aged out of the system, but and I'm going to date myself here. When I went through it, it was in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, before, for example, Facebook. So I thought I was going through this, all alone until technology caught up and I met other folks and realized all I had wanted from the beginning was just 2 nights and every other weekend, so met with other folks and saw they had similar struggles, and it was a matter of, well, what can we do to change it? And sure enough, it involved what we've done, gone to the Capitol, drafted legislation, uh, make and create and work relationships. But yeah, I got into it because I just saw a wrong that needed to be righted, and somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, definitely. And I
And
think that's so many of us in the spaces. I still remember the first time I went into court thinking, oh, all the other dads that are in here fighting child support or deadbeats. They want
yeah,
nothing to do with the kids.
yeah,
And I went through it. I mean, I started in 2017,
right,
and I just remember within weeks finding the communities on Facebook and really all over the internet of men and women That's one thing. There are a good chunk of women who the system is chewed up and spit out as well.
Absolutely, and we're lucky because we get to see it, I suppose, in two roles. So I actively practice family law, so I see it in a professional capacity, but also know it in a personal capacity, and it's a blessing and a curse. Because I don't know if you felt this way, Mark, but uh, originally when I went through this process, I thought, hey, I'm a lawyer, I know what court's like. I'll put my faith in the system and believe in a just outcome, and
Mhm.
God kind of close to it, an outcome. And but it just amazed me. My eyes were opened up how differently family court works because you're dealing with emotions and personality types. And my main observation, and you hit it right at the top, yes, is it's I don't see it as necessarily a gender issue. It's a personality issue, and I've seen the exact same symptoms from um, say a pathogenic father as I have in a pathogenic mother. So I don't think it's on gender, and you're right that it affects women as well as it affects men.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone disagree. There's a disproportionate impact, a
Yeah,
desperate impact on men, but I think I've seen some. There's been some new statistics coming out. It's always so hard because family cases are sealed, but it's up to I think it's 18% of custodial parents are fathers, which is
yeah,
up
big,
significantly,
yeah. I think it's up
even
10
in the
for me.
past
Yeah,
5 7 years.
sure.
Yeah,
Well,
and so that means yeah, there's going to be the deadbeat moms who want nothing to do, but I wouldn't. I think I'd probably be underselling it where at least 10% of the time it's a mom that gets chewed up and spit
oh
out
yeah,
by
yeah.
the
I've
system.
seen it even more than that, and you're right in terms of there's been a generational change. It was never about child support for me. I wanted to spend time with my son frequently, continuingly, in a meaningful way. And I remember at times even offering or stipulating, hey, this isn't about that. I'll stipulate my child support stays the same. I just want access to my kid.
Yeah.
And so that's what's so important about this bill passing and it passing in Missouri, sort of home of the model state type thing is that we're finally able to catch the laws up to the reality of the times. The reality of the times, and I'm going to date myself again, when I say I feel like saying this is no longer the 70s, but I was going to say this is no longer the 90s, which is 30 years ago. No, parenting and parents have changed. In my practice, I represent a lot of younger parents, and I really have seen the younger generation, so say in their 20s, coming into court, say early to mid to late 20s, already coming into court, already wanting to divide, allocate parenting time on a 50-50 basis.
Mhm.
So it is changing, and I do see the demographic change, and it's great to see the laws finally catching up with the realities.
Yeah, and I couldn't have said it better myself. I was actually, as you started down that road, that's where I was headed. Is you can see generationally, this
Yeah,
is something that is changing dramatically.
yeah,
Very rarely, I mean, there still are custody disputes, there still are custody
yeah,
battles with young
sure,
parents,
yeah,
but in general, barring any major issue, even if they were unmarried, a couple in their 20s, early 30s, I'll say my generation, I'm 32 years old, is significantly more like I'd even say even older. I mean,
yeah,
realistically, I would say under the age of 40 is significantly more likely to come in and they may not agree to a 50-50 schedule or there may be a reason for this or a reason for that, but you're seeing less and less of mom come in and try to and limit access to dad. Do we still see the silver bullet? Do we see those things?
sure,
I tell people that I think, I mean, we got to do something about domestic violence laws. It's a
sure,
serious issue, but the silver bullet is a serious issue as well. But I think we're two generations away from societal norms being if you split up, both parents are capable. Just like I
yeah.
think if we take our grandparents' generation, we take the 60, 70, 80 plus crowd, it's, oh, mom had the kids.
Yeah, yeah, and you see that too in terms of the bench, but also why the judiciary that is, but also why it's important. I hear a lot of the time. Well, it's what we were already doing anyways, so we don't need a statute. We don't need a law in the books. Well, here's exactly why we do, and I'm so glad that Missouri now has it, is it provides guidance. So before anyone's even gone in to see a lawyer, they can do a Google search. What are the custody requirements in Missouri? And boom, up pops the new statute that says rebuttable presumption, meaning a starting place that equal or approximately equal parenting time is in the child's best interest. The reason that's so
Yeah.
important is not because judges do it anyways, if they do, but because it starts the conversation or starts that parent's investigation or learning curve or whatever right from the start with the guidance that says, oh, we should be starting from equal or approximately equal, as
Yeah.
opposed to not having that guidance in the on the books that people can have access to or Google. That's where, the old ways came in. Oh, well, you can, kind of remember being offered, well, you can see him every other weekend.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. But we didn't have the guidance on the books. So that's so important because it sets someone's mind right from the outset into a position of fairness.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you, and I agree. I think it's probably a national piece. Is we're seeing more and more judges, especially here in California, the newer judges,
Yes.
um, where they are. I mean, we have a process here where you have to go to mediation,
Right.
and two of the counties we practice in, Riverside and San Bernardino, you go to mediation, and a therapist, a court appointed therapist, makes a recommendation to custody.
Yeah. That's
And I
yeah.
we're seeing more and more. I think the therapists are some of them are good, some of them not so good. I think that's
Right.
probably normal with any profession, especially
Sure.
government pay professions. But we're seeing more and more judges toss those reports out and basically say, "Why shouldn't dad have access?" I've seen so many judges flat out ask mom, "Well, what do you want? What do you
Yeah.
think is right? And then
Yeah.
why?"
And
Even
you're right.
bypassing their attorney, like, "Hey,
Yeah.
go ahead and put it on the record as to why you think that sharing your child and your child having both parents is bad."
Yeah. Yeah, it's and you're right. I see it with the younger judiciary, absolutely. But there's nothing in my mind, sort of being an old dog at this, more refreshing than when I first appear on the first status conference or first settlement conference, and my pleadings are requesting joint custody and equal parenting time, but the other wants sole. There's nothing more refreshing than just the judge looking down at that other parent, that other party, and saying, "Wait a minute, tell me why we're not starting here at 50-50,
Yeah,
as it should be." I mean, we no longer have to prove a negative, you know, prove that I'm not unfit. That's the other parent's job. So
yeah.
it's great to see and refreshing to hear the judiciary respond the way it has by asking just that. Well, wait a second. Why are we not starting in the middle? What's wrong with the other parent? That because you're going to have otherwise things are going to be obvious. I mean, if there's some reason to kick it out of that starting point of 50-50, you're going to see it. There's domestic violence. There's an addiction, a drug or alcohol issue, or
And that's the argument.
yeah.
That's the other side's argument. Well, what about these things?
Oh,
And
they're
I
dealt
think
with in a
for the
statute.
equal and shared parenting piece, it's like, okay, well, if go ahead, prove those things. If there's a
Yeah.
drug problem, yeah, that parent probably should be supervised. If
Yeah.
there's an alcohol problem, if there's been some sort of abuse,
Yeah.
but go out and prove it.
Yeah. But and that's just it. The difference is we're taking it from mere allegations to actual proof in an evidentiary hearing as soon as possible, as soon as practicable, so that targeted parent doesn't have to wait. I just had this conversation the other day, and I'm sure you know this too, Mark, practicing. If I can't get a hearing date for 4 months, I mean, the damage is done within 4 months. I need to get in
Yeah.
there within 30 days of service, get that temporary parenting plan, or schedule that evidentiary hearing right away. So that was 4 months become just one, and we can then get folks. I mean, it's new to them too. They haven't been through it necessarily. If they're younger folks, get them through the process in a reasonable and fair and efficient way.
That's probably the biggest challenge here in California. You file a petition, unless there's an emergency, you're 3 to 4 months
Yeah,
from just an initial hearing.
yeah.
And we had, there are some courthouses that it was 9, 10 months before you
Wow,
got an initial hearing.
wow.
So we had a case where dad knew mom was going to be combative. We actually filed in California. You can file before the child's born. We filed 5 days before the child was born. It took 2 hearings in 12 months. The baby had already celebrated her first birthday
Wow.
before we got any orders.
Yeah.
And then you're turning the question. This is always the biggest struggle for me, especially. I mean, we primarily male audience here. My
Right.
firm,
Yeah.
we represent exclusively men. You do
Yeah.
you represent men and
Yeah.
women, but the biggest challenge is when you see you have those large gaps and
Yeah.
you know getting dad, which dad should have been in their life from the get go, but getting dad back in their life, the one that's going to be the hardest on is going to be the child.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I'm glad to see in the at least for your Missouri viewers in the Missouri statute there is specific language after the starting point of 50-50 in the public policy section of the statute that says the legislature encourages the court to enter a temporary parenting plan as soon as practicable. And I get it's not strong. Thou shalt
Yeah.
have a hearing. And that's the problem. We can't dockets need to be flexible. Judges control their dockets. So while the language isn't as strong as shall have a hearing, it is a reminder that says, hey, at least one branch of government is encouraging the other branch to let's get this going and move it along.
What's going on, guys? It is Mark Real Jr., the father's rights attorney, and on August 7th, I am releasing my first book, The Father's Rights Playbook. My introduction to family law was my own family law case and going through the family court system. And in doing that, my eyes were open to the injustices that occur and the trials and tribulations that fathers are put through. So it was a personal experience, and then my eyes were open to this broad systemic issue, which has inspired me to build this firm and now write this book.
Yeah, that's a big
Or
one, and we've even seen that. We can kinda turn to I wanna walk the viewers through kind of you said it was 8, 9-year process to get,
yeah,
this bill passed in Missouri, but we've even seen improvement in the laws that have been passed. I mean, we had Kentucky in 2018
yeah,
where, the opposition ended up getting a carve out where the judge can literally walk up to the bench and say, "Hey, we're gonna make domestic violence allegations," and that
yeah,
rebuts the 50-50 presumption
right.
to where we're at now. I mean, I've heard things that in Kentucky, I mean, their potential in the next couple of years of going in and trying to match the legislation that's passed in these other states. Like, I mean, Arkansas, clear and convincing evidence. When we got
Yeah,
that
yeah,
as a community,
yeah.
that was
Wow.
a huge win.
It was amazing. And I don't know where and you're right. That's why it took, for example, in Missouri, the 9 years, because we were very targeted and specific with what language we wanted, that we didn't want to just pass anything and then kind of go back and fix it. Although ironically, we may need to do that in Missouri. But you know, I get the general thought or idea that something is better than nothing. I understand that and I get that, but it's a little bit more risky with legislation, because you always want to go on your best foot forward. And if this passes, we think we need to tweak this or tweak that. But if it passes in this form, is it going to be okay? And that's why it just took Missouri that extra little bit, because, well, other than odd things like, a worldwide pandemic, a governor
Yeah.
being charged with privacy crime, other than those things, that's why it took, because we were just so painstakingly uh, careful with the language, because that's crucial for what final version gets passed. But
Yeah.
nothing's perfect. Everything can be an improvement. So yeah, I'd rather get. Let me put it this way. And our sort of approach this year was, I'd rather get the majority of things done and in there and passed. If we have to, tweak one or two things, fine. But if you've got to go back and overhaul, you're doing the work twice. So
Yeah.
it makes sense to um, measure. I always get this backwards. Measure once and cut twice. No, I just did it. Measure,
Measure
measure.
twice, cut once.
I always get it backwards. Measure twice and cut once.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, there's a place like I mean, I said, I think the law. I mean, you go all the way back to really, I would say Arizona, they didn't get a presumption, but they for a while had the best laws in the country
Yeah.
around it. And then you get Kentucky and imperfect law, and we've started this snowball.
I was just about to say, it starts the process, starts the
And
conversation. Yep.
and here's the pieces that I know, and really I think most people in the community know at least a couple of the states that there's one legislator that's been around for 30 years that
Mhm.
has enough power to keep things from moving forward.
Yeah.
Um, Especially in the red states, I would love to see us get some traction um, in a blue state, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
you
you
start
know,
looking I look at the Midwest now, and it's like you got Kentucky, now you have
yeah,
Missouri.
Missouri,
Um,
Arkansas. Yeah.
there's traction, and
Yeah.
there's actually people in Indiana that it's starting to gain. Michigan's made some runs at it. I
Yeah.
mean, pretty soon regionally, these things are going to take off when they look at their neighbor.
Absolutely, and isn't it wonderful? So we had that same problem in Missouri. We had a legislator who was just opposed to this legislation, and the way the system is established or works in Missouri had the ability to hold things up, and held things up for 8 years. The good news is that it only took nine. So
Yeah.
you outlast some of those challenges, and then it starts somewhere, the ball's rolling. Now it's rolling a bit faster. Now other states can say, it's not just a few, there's five others that have all done this. That adds credibility to it, and that ball just keeps on picking up momentum, and it's great to see. We're going to see it across the country. I think, like you said, generationally, we've already seen a difference in 2 to 3 generations. I bet the next 10 years we'll probably see half the country with these laws, and then it's just a matter of
Yeah.
dominoes
I
from
mean, I
there.
think the best example of the holdup in the state of Texas, they had what, 30, 35 sponsors
Yeah,
to a bill.
right. Yeah,
They had the votes in both houses, but there were four people there was really one person on a committee that held the votes hostage of three others.
yeah,
And you keep a bill you already have the votes for from even getting to the floor.
yeah. And it's there's been many times I've left the Capitol wanting to bang my head against the wall, and those are one of them. Those types of times, but that I think also reinforces how important it is to create, make, develop, and work relationships, as opposed to sort of a blunt rage, protest, vote chat. Well, no, we can finesse this. We can be diplomatic about it. We can be clever and wise in the way we approach it by cultivating these relationships. But yeah, at the end of the day, if it comes down to it, and it's unfortunate the way some of these governments are set up. Missouri came down to just one person. So, but at the end of the day, the right side of history prevailed.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely, and I think you guys in Missouri, I feel like every couple days I get a voice memo. Mark Ludwig loves his voice memos. I'm sure you get them too, and you've probably gotten significantly more than I have. But every probably twice a week I get a voice memo, and he's like, "Hey, Mark, I want to tell you this," and it's another politician in Missouri that's going to be at the event in October, and I
Oh,
think that
oh,
goes to show
yeah,
the relationships that were built through this 8 years and
yeah.
what pushed it through. When there are 20, 30 legislators that are going to be in St. Louis, really for a celebration of
Yeah.
a lot of people's work over the past decade.
Well, and you're right. And the great thing about that is it's going to be a super event. I encourage everyone, if they can make it, please do. I've gone to them for the last number of years, and it's just that coming together of folks you normally see through a camera or hear through a microphone or set of speakers. But the great thing about that and working those relationships, and then seeing the I guess the product or the result of it, say for example in an event like what's coming up in October, why that's so key and important just for those that work on legislation is those legislators then, over the time you've worked on that project, see your work. They see your dedication. It's been kind of a running joke here in Missouri that I've apologized and I'll continue to apologize for legislators. Okay, we get it. We've done the education part. But what's important about that is they know we've done the research. They know we have the receipts. You build that through that relationship over time, and why that's so important is then for the next thing, for the next project, for what's coming down the pipe. Like, oh, these are the folks that, we've seen their work. Are they here again? Type of thing.
Yeah.
And but they know your history, and they know your attention to detail. And so that then, just it's almost symbiotic. It reinforces each other. Your work strengthens the relationship. Getting legislation passed then is the reciprocity for that. So it all comes together, and it will in October as well. So hope to see everyone there.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely the exciting part, and I think a lot of people don't realize even your state level legislators,
Oh,
they are around people nationally. I mean,
yeah. Oh,
it's if they see that if there's 30 legislators in Missouri at an event for a specific cause, you better bet at least regionally, all the legislators in the states around them know what has happened,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
the word gets out nationally. So it's even though hey the ball got pushed across the finish line in Missouri, but I mean the snowball effect
Oh,
is
absolutely.
will there be two or three legislators? Hey, that state senator I got drunk with at the
Right.
Republican event at so and so,
Yeah.
like, oh, I see him at this event. Let me talk to him. Oh, I
Right.
see there's a lot of support for it. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's the big deal is the community aspect of it. And even if your state's not going to pass it, even if I mean, just be honest, we've had discussions with legislators in California. By landmass, we're primarily a red state, but
Yeah.
obviously having the major cities that are some of the bluest districts in the country
Right.
um, has made it challenging. But I mean, even if you're able to get local government, you're able to get these people on your side. There's going to be conversations, and it could be
Yeah.
something that helps another state, or
Yeah.
we talk about generationally how parents act. I think that I mean we're starting to see more 30 something, even 20 something legislators, and it's
Yeah.
going to become more normal. It's
Yeah.
going to become this is what our generation does.
Yeah.
There's no stay at home mom, like that's
Yeah.
gone, and say
Yeah.
my generation, like there's never an assumption that that's going to happen.
Right.
So I think every little bit right now, I'm really excited. I thought what was it 2021 where Texas went down to the wire. You guys
Yeah.
in Missouri went down to the
Yeah.
wire.
Few times. Yeah.
I told people that I was like, there's some of these states got a 2 year cycle, so it may
Yeah.
take a couple years, but
Right.
I,
Right.
we got this is the first year we've gotten two states.
Yeah,
That's a big
and
win.
if it takes, just, 2 or 3 states a year, great, great, all on board. Um, Back to what you said though, with respect to the seeing the legislators there at the event, here's another sort of insight. Not only do we learn and grow and how we develop these relationships, but it may be, say, a first year representative. Well, they have their political career ahead of them. So you make those relationships early, you never know where they're going to end up. So, what if they run for, house speaker, floor leader, or something like that? All of a sudden, that relationship that you've developed and cultivated now is in a position where things can move. Just
Yeah.
just
Hey,
just by time and where they end up and what their position ends up being
yeah.
after their first.
Every U.S. rep, every senator in the United States Senate, they started out most likely
Right.
as a in California, it's assembly person. They
Right.
started out in the junior chamber of the state Congress. So
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
and I know we've also, and I don't think we have time today to even dive in. It's like there have been some sights set on some federal stuff, which is
Yeah.
even more challenging
Oh yeah. It's even, yeah, a lot larger.
than passing stuff at the state level.
Yeah.
So I mean, in terms of legislation and in terms of the work you did, what advice would you give to someone who maybe is trying to get the ball rolling in their state?
Don't give up. Don't give up. It's going to seem like it'll never happen, and but then one day you wake up and all of a sudden it happened. So I think the first piece of advice I think I'd have is don't give up. Uh, I have a saying I like to tell folks, especially that are maybe going through family court or whatnot. Don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle happens, because it's right there. You never know. The only thing you know for sure is it'll never happen if you give up. So I encourage people to take a break, rest, hang in there, and then get back at it. Substantively, I think the biggest tip I'd have for folks is you've got to pay attention to the details. You've got to have all your ducks in a row. So when you're asked questions or how does this impact that or affect the other thing, you've got all that information and you've got it all ready. Now, I wouldn't necessarily give that to or present that to your sponsor or legislator. They might not need it, might not want it. They just see a pile of information they're never going to get to. So the other tip I have is kind of show it. We've got it here. If you would like, I can send it your way, type of thing. And I think that's the best way of keeping it um, ready, but not sort of ignored or sitting there. So
Yeah.
don't give up. Pay attention to the details. Have your research and work done, and offer things as opposed to here it is. They might not need that right now. They'll come to you when they need more information.
Awesome, awesome. And so to wrap up every episode, I ask the attorney, the expert, whoever we have on, what is the one piece of advice that you would give a father who is just starting out their journey in family court?
Uh, it's a tough one. It's a bit of a catch 22. I thought about this before, and my piece of advice is kids spell love Time. So spend as much time as you can with them. And I get it, you're in family court. The catch 22 part is, well, that's why I'm in family court. I'm trying to get that time. I understand that. It'll come. Don't give up. In the meantime, even if it's just 3 hours on a Tuesday night, focus on your child. It pains me when I see um, you know, uh, dad and young child on a Sunday, and he's got a 30 pack of beer under one arm, and they're heading back to watch the foot. And I'm like, he's going to be passed out by the. Get spend time with your kids. Get down on the floor with them. Play with them. Yeah, for younger kids, get messy with them. For older kids, talk to them. How are you feeling? All these sorts of things for say kids that are 8 to 12, 13ish. um I'm still trying to figure out how to handle teenagers. Mine won't be one next fall, so I guess I'll skip that part. But that's it, because kids, we don't give children, I don't think we give children enough credit for understanding how things really are. And they'll get it. And they'll go back into their data bank of memories, and they'll be like, I hear all these, you know, complaints or criticisms, whatever, about dad, but when I'm with him, he's down on the carpet with me playing my Thomas train or playing trucks or zooming the car around me. That doesn't make sense. Kids get it, and they will go back to that time spent together um, over anything else. So I mentioned the example of the football game. Turn your phone off too. I would with my son. I would, when we would be say on our way to a ball game or something. I'd say, hey, let's both of us turn our phones off so we're not interrupted and we can just enjoy the game. What I really am saying is so we can enjoy each other and the game. And so that's my biggest advice is whatever time you have, spend as much of it with your kiddo, not just sort of passively. I mean, I watch football with my son too. I'm not getting at that. So I'm just saying, be as active and in their face with their kids as much as you can for what time you have, and then it's just going to blossom and grow from there. The other reason for that too, real quick, is that then sets the bond or the foundation. My goal personally, going through all this, was I just want at the end of the day my son to be able to come over to my house and hang out if he wants, And was surprised on July 4th when he wasn't doing anything and he came and met up with me for dinner. And it was like, wow, that's all I wanted. And he's 20 now and young man and living his own life, and all that's great. But that coming over was built on the foundation of getting down with him and in his face and running the cars up and down his head and playing with him. And so that's where it
Mhm.
starts. And you've got to do that if you can, right from the
Awesome, awesome. So, to wrap up here, so you were in the St. Louis area. So you're in the St. Louis area. Where can they find you at?
Uh, find me at the5050guy.com. Made it easy.
Awesome, awesome. So, Jeff there in the St. Louis, Missouri area, the 5050guy.com. Jeff, thank you so much for your time today. Your knowledge and everything you share with us today was amazing. And hopefully, I'll see you here in a couple of months. To all listeners and viewers, we'll catch you guys next time. Bye, guys.
Absolutely. Pleasure being on, and thank you for having me again. Greatly appreciate it.